Hello everyone, welcome back to the Acolyte podcast. Today we will not have Nimue on the show. Unfortunately, we know how life goes outside the YouTube algorithm. We will begin discussing House of the Dragon, Episode 2, The Rogue Prince. So this episode began with the same song as Game of Thrones, but we have a completely different animation. And there's also hints towards the family tree as you see the blood pours down, separates. This separation symbolizes the two children he begot from his two sister wives. I'm not going to go too much further into these details though. There are many researched YouTube videos out there that have already gotten into that detail, but there is something that during my first watch really stuck in my brain after seeing that intro. You see the blood start from where Viserys later on says was the blood mages. That was the home of the blood mages, the seat of all the power in Valyria, and the blood pours completely down and all through the streets, which leads to the assumption that blood poured through the streets in Valyria, kind of like it's hinted at it doing in Shy in the books. There's just, obviously Valyria is much, much darker than a lot of people of the general public want to believe. It's not just a golden city of, it's dragons and fire and blood, and we have to remember that dragons in George R. R. Martin's world are equal to nuclear warfare. They aren't necessarily mystical and sparkly and, Falcor. They are definitely Smaug in this sense. So episode 2 opens with a flash of the Crow Feeder. He will be our main antagonist for all of our different heroes that we've been presented with, and it's perfectly bookended by the end of the episode. Next we have the Small Council, where I would like to point out Viserys is actually in resident, like he showed up, which is more than can be said about a lot of the kings in the Game of Thrones era of rule. He's there. Whether or not he's actually doing his job well, standing in defense of his rule well, and his decisions well, he's there. So I'm going to give him those props. And we also see him make quite a few mistakes in this scene. I would like to point out as well that he is not the only one to blow off Rhaenyra. And it seems like they are more blowing her off in a you are a child, you are the placeholder sort of sense, not necessarily you are a woman. Nobody brings up the fact that she's a princess or she's a girl. She wouldn't understand these matters. They just don't feel that she's of a position to speak on that. And that has always really irritated me whenever you talk down to someone who is coming of that age. She's old enough to wed in bed. She's old enough to speak in your conversation. So they give her what is actually a fairly decent role. I mean, for her standing of that age, being given the honor of choosing the King's Guard is actually a very good job for her. But Viserys kind of just plays it off like it is. Go out of the way, go over here, take care of this. You're not old enough, you're not responsible enough to take part in the adult conversation. And so we see the next scene. Rhaenyra goes and she is given the opportunity between many knights of the kingdom, and she wants to choose somebody with battle experience. And I totally understand this, and everybody in the interwebs is talking about how that's such a good idea, but I would like to point out that I kind of agree with Otto at this time, and I hate that. I hate that it is season 2 and I am agreeing with Otto. I don't want to agree with Otto Hightower. I want to put his head on a spike. Heads on spikes. That's how we feel about Otto. But he has a valid point. Criston Cole is a nobody. He has no ties to the Targaryen house and no real reason to be loyal, aside from loyalty that is earned. And has she really done anything to earn his loyalty? What have they done to earn his loyalty to show they're worthy of it thus far? And I feel that if she would have chose somebody else, somebody with stronger ties to House Targaryen, whether or not he was a tourney knight or had seen real battle experience, it might have played out for her in the future. But that's the whole point of this story. Next is the scene with Viserys and Alicent, and this is going to be the beginnings of their relationship, and it's coming off as very genuine to start out, but I kind of am hesitant to believe such a false flag, because Alicent is not genuine. As much as she may care for both Viserys and Rhaenyra, she is doing what her father ordered, and that whether or not she is malicious of intent, she is not genuine in her intents of getting close to the royal family. So those are my feelings on Alicent. But I want to say that Patty is really bringing the historical vibes into this show, especially this scene and many others in future, not the future episodes. I mean to say the future of this episode. The Mine Own Daughter and the way they speak to each other and with other actors, and it feels like a historical drama. It feels like a Shakespearean tragedy. They're playing it up, and I love that. I really just wanted to say that is something that I noticed and I truly appreciate. Oh, Corlys and Rhaenys. I am in love with Corlys and Rhaenys. They truly are working together. Like, they understand what marriage really is. What reason do they have to work against each other? They have children together. Their house was built together. Well, Corlys built his house, but Rhaenys, I'm in love with them. The only couple in Westeros who does not do moves and counter moves against their own spouse and for the deterrent of their own house. Like, just thank God we have somebody who's got it figured out in this show, and I am in love with them. And Corlys's line, you have to sail into the storm or around it. You cannot wait for it. That is, chef's kiss, I swear. Because he's foretelling not just the Stepstones War, but the war that Viserys has been trying to negate this whole time over, and Jaehaerys was trying to negate the whole time, over who would inherit his throne. They've been trying to avoid it, trying to steer, and they're messing it up every single time. And that's what's so beautiful about this show, is you're going to want to scream at the TV and shake them, because they're going to mess it up. The next scene opens with the visual of Viserys' hand rotting and then placing his hand into the bowl of maggots. And there's been a few other people to point it out, but I want to take the time to say that is definitely them talking about his rotten hand, Otto Hightower. But there's something else that I noticed around this episode and this scene, is that anytime Otto advises Viserys on something, it seems like they make extreme eye contact, Otto and Grand Maester Maelor, and then Maelor will advise the opposite. So it's almost like they're playing Jedi mind tricks with Viserys, to where Viserys doesn't trust the Citadel at Old Town with the Maesters and all that, but he would have no reason to distrust Otto if Otto is advising the opposite of what the Maester is advising. And finally, in our next scene, we meet the beautiful Elena Valerion, daughter of Corlys and Rhaenys, and future rider of dragons. Definitely pay attention to that scene if you want those hints. I try my hardest not to spoil, but then I get excited and I spoil. So, I want to point out something that they are leading you into with Lena's character, and it's just how politically motivated she isn't, how uninterested in it she is. She could have hidden what her father told her and her mother told her when speaking to the king, but she was dead honest, and that seems par for the course for Lena's character in the books. Even with who she marries in the future, their marriage is not a political one, in my opinion. It definitely isn't. They run off together, quite literally, and it's quite romantic. So, yes, we love Lena here, and I am so excited to see her join our cast. The next one is a real standout to me. It is not the standout, but it really stood out to me, because everybody is taking it as the women in power against each other. But really, I took it more as Rhaenys trying to warn Rhaenyra. She's still young, and you see that a lot of times in the modern world. Young women believing that they are just going to be able to go in and stand right on top of the shoulders of the women that came before them. And they really don't understand the hard work that woman has already put into the position that they managed to scrape out into the world. And you really didn't hold very much respect to those women who came before them. And it's a shame. So I love the way that episode is handled, that scene, because Rhaenys is one of my favorite characters. And I'm excited to see more interaction between her and Rhaenyra. And the fact that it wasn't a straight-on catfight. They were two women kind of genuinely trying to understand each other and see where they stood with one another. It truly is the second scene between Viserys and Alicent that leads me to the feeling that she is genuine in her care for him. And it's not that she gave him the stone dragon, it's her reaction when she hears about his possible courtship with Lena Velaryon. There's the little twitches, the little eye flickers, which appears like she's trying to control her joy that she's not the one the king has chosen to court. But it's clear as well that she's going to continue to do what her father has asked her to do. I would like to point out that it is also clear in our next scene that as horrible as what he did is, Daemon is just trying to get a rise out of Viserys. He's just trying to get a reaction. That's very clear. He wants to piss him off. He wants him to do anything besides sit there on that throne and get poked. Like, do something. Become a man of something, because you're definitely not a man of action. And here's another moment where I find myself strangely agreeing with Otto Hightower. Viserys clearly could not have been the one to go to Dragonstone. You are not to give you don't give in to terrorist demands. That's not how this works. You don't give the man what he's asking for, but you can't deny him entirely. He is a Targaryen. He is your brother. So I believe Rhaenyra made the most wonderful decision in this episode by going to Dragonstone herself. The only way to get Daemon to back down was to acknowledge him, have a Targaryen go, but it could not have been the king. The king cannot acknowledge that kind of child fit throwing. Just can't happen. Miss Arya, I'm incredibly surprised that they're going to go the route of it just being a rumor for the show. I really like that, though. The less babies we all kill off would be nice. I appreciate. So the fact that they didn't have her actually pregnant and losing the child on her way back to Lys, I appreciate that fact there. And the fact that they're using it as a plot device for her to get angry with Daemon, because she had to have left him then for a reason. He's not sending her away in this sense. because I don't feel like this Daemon wouldn't send Mysario away. So I like the idea that she is going to be the one that leaves him. She came to him to be liberated, and then she will liberate herself from the mess that is Daemon. Love that. And then we open to a scene of Viserys fiddling with that stone dragon that Alicent gave him, and it's almost as if his mind has been made up before he even accepts the counsel of Sir Lionel Strong. And I appreciate the idea of Lionel telling him it's a good idea, because it was. It would have been a good idea to keep the Valerians on side, as stomach-turning as it is for him to marry a 12-year-old. He should have offered in that instant. He thought he was going to deny whatever, the hand of Laena. He should have offered Rhaenyra's hand to their son, Laenor. It just makes the most sense politically to me, if you still want to keep them in your back pocket. And you do. They have all your ships. So, that is what angers both Rhaenyra and Corlys. Not only did he choose to marry his daughter's best friend, but he's denying the hand of the daughter of his master of ships, the strongest man in the realm. And then we come to the bookend of the episode, at Driftmark with Corlys, and he explains the backstory of House Valerian, about how he cleaved his way up back to the top from where his family had dredged to the bottom. He built his house by the strength of his back and the strength of his hands, and he understands in a way how to speak to Daemon, not necessarily about his brother, but how to motivate him. He knows that Daemon just wants a place within the Targaryen family. He wants to be a part. There are 3 heads on the tapestries, aren't there? He wants a position, that's all. So Corlys is telling him, why not scrape yourself out of position? And I love that they did the second sons thing. They're doing that all over the place with the Feast for Crows and little hints and attributes from Game of Thrones being dropped in. And there's also something else that is being led to with the idea of Rhaenyra and how they're portraying her. And I really love it. She's almost holding the air of Princess Mary and Princess Elizabeth all at once. And it reminds me of the line from the Cate Blanchett Elizabeth movie. Princes of the female gender. She is the heir, and they're all going to try to deny her, like they did Mary, like they did Elizabeth, and like they did Maud, the one that the story is based and twisted off of. So it's nice that we're actually getting that feeling. We're supposed to be getting that feeling. And it's nice to see her make a few mistakes here and there, because it's going to give her areas to grow. Alright everyone, I think we have finally succeeded in making a commentary video. Less than 20 minutes. Woohoo! Be sure to leave us a like, a subscribe, and check us out after the next episode, House of the Dragon airs. Be sure, let us know your own opinions down in the comments. And if you missed our beautiful Nimue, be sure to check the description below to find a link to one of her many videos.